smoke stung his lungs, the air turning blacker by the second. Each breath felt like a razor in his throat, but Mason didn't stop. Somewhere inside the burning house, a child was crying, and Mason wouldn't walk away, not again. He kicked open a half-collapsed door, shielding his face from the flames. He couldn't see much, just the flicker of fire against the smoke. But then, there it was, a tiny figure curled up under a table, coughing weakly. Mason dropped to his knees, crawled forward, and grabbed the child in his arms. Her small body trembled as she clung to him. The heat was unbearable, but Mason powered through, willing his legs to move faster than ever. With one final push, he burst through a window, crashing onto the lawn. The crowd that had gathered screamed in relief. Firefighters rushed over, taking the girl from his arms. She was alive, barely, but alive. As the medics worked on the girl, Mason collapsed on the grass, coughing violently. His eyes burned, his skin blistered, but he didn't care. For the first time in a long time, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt like he mattered. Because Mason wasn't a hero, not really. He was a man who'd been running from his own wreckage, a failed marriage, a job he'd lost, a brother he hadn't spoken to in years. He lived alone in a small apartment, his days blending into nights filled with nothing but regret and cheap whiskey. Saving that girl changed something in him. He didn't even know her name, but her little hand clutching his shirt, he kept feeling that grip even after the fire trucks left, even after the news cameras vanished. But that wasn't the end. The next morning, Mason woke up to a knock on his door. When he opened it, no one was there, just an envelope taped to the door frame. Inside was a simple note. You saved more than a life yesterday. You saved yourself. Step outside. Confused, Mason stepped out to the curb, and there it was, a black SUV, polished to a mirror shine, with a red bow on top. He looked around, certain there was a mistake. But then he saw the key fob resting on the windshield with a card. Drive this and see where it takes you. You've been chosen. At first, he laughed it off, probably a prank. But curiosity gnawed at him. He grabbed the keys, sat behind the wheel, and started the engine. It purred like a beast waiting to be unleashed. Taped to the dashboard was a GPS with an address already entered. It led him to the outskirts of town, to a place he hadn't visited in years, a youth center. The building was old, the paint peeling, the sign barely readable, but the parking lot was full. Kids running around, laughing, playing. Mason stood there, unsure why he was there, until an older man approached. "You made it," he said, smiling warmly. "We were waiting for you." "For me?" Mason asked. The man nodded. The SUV was just the beginning. The people who donated it, they know about your past. They see potential where you don't. You used to volunteer here before life broke you, remember? The memory hit Mason like a wave. Years ago, before the Depression, before the divorce, he used to coach Little League here, teach kids how to play ball, stay out of trouble. He'd almost forgotten that version of himself. "We need coaches again," the man continued. "Mentors, people who've lived, who've struggled, who can guide these kids. You've got a second chance, Mason." He didn't know why, but tears burned his eyes. Maybe it was the years of pain catching up, or maybe it was the weight lifting off his shoulders for the first time in forever. He said yes. Weeks turned into months, and Mason found himself back in his element, coaching, mentoring, laughing with kids who had no fathers or mothers, who saw in him what he had forgotten in himself, a fighter. But the SUV, it wasn't just a gift, it was a symbol. Every week, he'd find something new left in the back seat. Books on coaching, envelopes with donations for the center, even letters from anonymous people telling him how much his story inspired them.
He never found out who was behind it, but it didn't matter. What mattered was that he wasn't alone anymore. Challenges didn't vanish overnight. Mason still battled his demons, the cravings for alcohol, the echoes of his failed marriage, the distance from his brother. Some nights were still hard, but now he had people depending on him, looking up to him. That little girl he saved, her family started coming to the center too, and every time she saw Mason, she ran to hug him like he was her hero. And in a way, he was. One day, sitting on the hood of that black SUV, Mason realized something. The fire hadn't just destroyed a house, it burned away everything he thought defined him, leaving behind someone new. Someone stronger. Life didn't give him a miracle wrapped in a bow. It gave him a choice, to step up or stay broken. He chose to rise. And as the sun set over the youth center, Mason knew that sometimes the biggest rescues aren't in burning buildings. They're the ones we do for ourselves, piece by piece, moment by moment. And that mysterious SUV, it was never about the car. It was about the journey.